It's a season of change in Kansas City, and Matt Nagy is the first guy out the door. We're going to find out who else is going with him today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, Chiefs Kingdom. Thanks for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Chiefs show on the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports network out there. And we appreciate you for being here. And we're your daily show for the Chiefs, no matter what season it is. It is draft season now, officially for us here and you in the fan base. So we appreciate you guys being here. You everydayers know us really well. We can't say thank you enough. And if you don't know us yet, we'll tell you about that in just a second. Check out the Everydayer Club because it's a great new way to get special content that doesn't have ads and all that kind of stuff. We're brought to you today by FanDuel, now that I mention it. Before tip-off, as it's going, check out the FanDuel app and see what's going on in the NBA Happy Hour. It's every Friday from 6 to 7:30. It's their newest thing. Check that out. I think you'll enjoy it. We're going to talk with Matt Derrick today from ChiefsDigest.com, our resident insider. Been with us for a very, very long time. Is our premier guest, and I couldn't appreciate you more, Matt. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, where we run down the draft class for you in every metric I can come up with, and a number of patented ways to look at athleticism. So please check that out. You can find my draft work over at NFL33.com, along with the rest of my staff, and at RGR Football, where we break it all down Chiefs-wise from a whole different perspective. Look at the film and all that. Been on the show for 10 years now, Matt. Next season is going to be 10 years. That's crazy. I'm looking forward to getting a decade under the belt. And we are going to talk today about what that might look like next season, because things are changing. Chiefs coordinators. Are they going? Are they staying? Who wants them? A lot of things are up in the air right now. We're going to talk about Matt Nagy and Steve Spagnuolo initially. Then we're going to move on to the other NFL openings that have an effect on what the Chiefs can and cannot do right now, and just how big an overhaul this staff might see. That's going to be our third topic coming up later. But we welcome Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com, Chiefs Digest on YouTube, and 41 is the mic. Matt, that intro was a little bit long because I wanted to cover all the bases, because you got to turn over every rock this time of year. And we got a little bit of information in that Matt Nagy's not the only one interviewing for the Titans job, but he will be there. Tomorrow, I believe, during the day, in kind of that middle of the pack is kind of, I think, the ringer, but it is definitely on the table moving forward. You have the Rooney Rule in place. You have a couple things that have to go into that. But the first iron to strike is Matt Nagy to the Titans. In terms of the interview, I don't know that there's any better fit out there right now in any of these coaching searches. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Matt Nagy in Tennessee is at minimum the stalking horse. This is the guy that at least that they can start off with and compare to all their other coaching candidates. I think between Chad Brinker and Mike Borgonzi in Tennessee, they would look at Matt Nagy and say, hey, if this is the guy we ended up with, we'd be completely and perfectly happy. So let's just explore the field and see if there's anybody we like better than Matt Nagy. And I do think he's going to be the front runner. I mean, it doesn't always mean that they get the job. Sometimes you start opening these things up and you do a handful of interviews and somebody comes along and pops up. Then the question is, if Matt Nagy doesn't get the Tennessee job, does he get another head coaching job or an offensive coordinator job? Because we're up to at least 7 head coaching openings. I mean, there can always be more by the hour. We never know.
Yep.
And we know there's going to be at least 8, if not more, offensive coordinator jobs. There'll probably be a few more even open up. I mean, I certainly would expect. And if Matt Nagy leaves, there'd be at least 9. So there's going to be some openings. And we talked about this when the smoke came along about, hey, Matt Nagy's contract is up, so we can explore his options. Clearly, one of his premier options is just simply moving on from Kansas City to get whether it's a head coaching job or an offensive coordinator job where he can get outside the shadow of Andy Reid and not have the issues with what's going on in the Kansas City offense affecting his long-term career prospects. So I certainly feels like, Matt Nagy is trying to find a job outside of Kansas City. If he doesn't, maybe he sticks around. Maybe the Chiefs still decide to go in a different direction, but I would think that more than likely the Chiefs will be looking for a new offensive coordinator sooner than later.
I have to think that's the case. And, with that resume, I think there's going to be interest. It's going to be maybe not what we think, but I really do like the fit there. I like Mike Borgonzi trying to do what he knows works. I think that makes a lot of sense. You can't have two coordinators from one team go become the head coach at one franchise. So Steve Spagnuolo's got interest out there as well. The Giants are going to have a little bit. I think there's other teams as well. A little bit different scenario there, though, because he's not an up-and-comer. He's not necessarily the new hot innovator type guy that some feel Nagy can be. I think that's more based on his Chicago time than it is currently what he's doing with Andy Reid. But Spagnuolo is in a kind of, I don't want to say sunset, but certainly the fourth quarter of his career at this point, right? And I do think there will be teams that are willing to make a go at him. I just don't know if he's got enough. And you've seen him, you deal with him. He still seems very energetic to me. But do you think making the leap to a head coaching position once again is exactly what he's looking for? Or is this more of a decision point he'll have to mull it over?
Yeah, it's interesting to me because, with Spags, you're right. The Giants is like the most obvious coaching position that would be available for him. Hey, there was a team, the Raiders were interested in Spags last year. There could be a team that comes along that, feels like maybe the thing that they're away from is having a defensive oriented, mature, older coach. I don't know if we'll see what some of the directions are. I don't know what the Baltimore Ravens are going to look for if they didn't like what John Harbaugh was bringing to the table. But, so we'll see. But like you said, I think that there's going to be fewer opportunities for Spags simply because, again, what do NFL owners and organizations seem to want? They want the offensive flavor of the month. They want the young offensive guru that's coming up. They would rather have the defensive veteran as their defensive coordinator that figures everything out. I don't necessarily think that's the obvious way to go. I think you should just, one, get your head coach right, period, and then figure out whatever their specialty is on the other side of the ball. And obviously, we've seen situations where you hire a CEO coach who has two good coordinators, and that's maybe a better way to go. Spagnuolo, I think, could be a couple of different ways. He could be just a defensive-oriented head coach. He could be a CEO type. I think, the thing is that there are two previous head coaching experiences. Matt Nagy's job in Chicago, I think, has just aged better, certainly, because now everybody looks back and is like, hey, wait a minute, Matt Nagy won some games. He took Mitch Trubisky to the playoffs, people. So now people judge that a little bit differently. Whereas, Steve Spagnuolo never had a prayer in St. Louis. That franchise was built to abandon the St. Louis Rams in St. Louis. And he never had a chance with that team. He was handed a terrible offensive coordinator his last year in St. Louis. And feel free to look that up and see who he was handed and what their offensive numbers were that year, because that was horrific. But I think Spags could be a good head coach. And honestly, you know what? His best chance of being a head coach is waiting until Andy Reid retires and taking over in Kansas City. Who knows?
I think those are options, but there are openings out there that I do think create one scenario in particular that you just sparked in my brain that could happen, because there's a prime job in Baltimore open right now. And I think both these guys are going to be candidates. We're going to tell you why coming up next. Hey guys, the draft picks are in. They're set for so many teams. They're looking for a franchise quarterback. If you ever wish to become a QB yourself, getting drafted first overall by the Chiefs, or like this year, the actual Raiders, now you can. There's a mobile game just for you. Ultimate QB football legend. In this game, you step into the cleats of number one draft pick. It's your job to lead your team to greatness. The number one career mode game on mobile app stores, and it introduces the most realistic environment for a full career control. You sign contracts, train, upgrade yourself, build chemistry, and evolve with your teammates. Give input to your GM on roster moves, play the actual games in 2D, and rise up the ranks to become a pro football legend. Ultimate QB is totally free. There's no ads. It works 100% offline. Perfect for you want to sneak a quick game in or two on the go. Just head over to ultimate-qb.com. That's ultimate-qb.com, or search Ultimate QB in your favorite app store. We've got something special for you guys. Use the promo code LOCKEDON in all caps in the game store, and you'll get a free boost to start your career at Ultimate QB, the football legend. QB1, it's your legacy. Guys, it's late 2025, almost 2026, And those days of waiting for something to become a full-blown emergency before you see a doctor, they're over. No more walking it off for 6 months. No more pretending that it's weird shoulder stiffness isn't going to be more than just sleeping wrong. It's time to take your health seriously. And ZocDoc makes it easier than ever because staying healthy is more than just hitting the gym or eating right. It's about actually getting things checked out when something feels off. No more back and forth with phone calls, waiting for weeks to be seen. Real appointment times, they're listed. They're same-day visits. It makes it easy for you to do what you need to. Stop putting off your doctor's appointments and get the care that you need. Go to ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL, ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. Folks, make sure you check out Matt over at Chiefs Digest, excuse me. I'm mid-sentence here, Matt, because I'm just so choked up about all these opportunities that are out there. I do really love this time of year. John Harbaugh was fired today from the Baltimore Ravens. I didn't actually think that was going to happen, and that puts kind of a crescendo on it there. And I do think they like a defensive-based head coach. I do think that should Steve Spagnuolo get that job, he might be looking for an OC that can maybe do some things with Lamar like they do in Kansas City. Is there a scenario in your mind where if either Matt Nagy or Steve Spagnuolo gets a head coaching job, they look for the other to come with them?
Absolutely, entirely possible to me. I mean, could it be a package deal where you get both those guys from Kansas City working together? And and I think the scenario that you paint right there, maybe where Steve Spagnuolo is the head coach and Matt Nagy is the offensive coordinator, makes more sense. I don't think you would see necessarily a situation where Spags becomes a defensive coordinator elsewhere. I mean, that's not a job that he's looking to make, and he doesn't have the same problem in Kansas City that Matt Nagy has, where that people, once again, they hang all the problems with the Kansas City offense around Matt Nagy's neck, but they don't give him any of the credit when things go well. When reality is that all of that rests with Andy Reid, whereas, Steve Spagnuolo, it's 100% of the success and failures of the defense in Kansas City rests with Spags. So, and obviously Spags has got a great situation. By all accounts, he's the highest paid defensive coordinator in the league. So at the same time, I don't even know if Spags necessarily needs to be taking like the worst coaching jobs. So if you view, maybe you view the Raiders as the worst possible place you could go. I don't know if Spags needs to take the worst job out there. But if, again, Matt Nagy ends up somewhere else, so Spagnuolo become an option in Tennessee. Yeah, I mean, I think there's some scenarios where both those guys could become head coaches. And like you said, I think there's even one or two scenarios where maybe they are a package deal somewhere.
I think that's really interesting. Personally, between you and me, all these openings that are there include the Giants, Raiders, Falcons, Titans, Browns, Cardinals. I wouldn't say that the Raiders are up there. I would say that the Giants, Titans, and I hesitate to put the Titans in there because they have a rookie quarterback. And if you're a defensive coordinator, maybe that's not what you're looking for. But I would say those are the top three jobs now, along with Baltimore. And I would say Baltimore comes in at the very top. And so I do think that both these guys are now viable for more than one job, more than maybe two or three apiece. That said, if both were to leave, and you are looking out there at what the landscape is of guys that just lost head coaching gigs or are out there and available to be pulled in as offensive coordinators, I guess we should start with, do you feel in any way, shape, or form that no matter what, Andy Reid would promote from within for either of these coordinator openings if they were open?
Yeah, it's a natural assumption because Andy Reid is promoted from within a lot. And he's also hired guys that he has had a connection with a lot. So I'm not sure that I can really immediately think to myself, the obvious, maybe Jim Johnson in Philadelphia was someone that he didn't have a direct connection to. I'm trying to remember, but it's hard to remember, someone that Andy Reid didn't, have some type of relationship with before he hired him as his coordinators. So there's that question that's out there is there anybody that, he could bring in from outside? I thought it was very interesting that, on Monday when we were talking with him, that the only internal name that he mentioned as really a potential candidate was Joe Blameyer. And And I think that is probably the only candidate that they would have that they would consider as a potential in-house replacement for Matt Nagy. If Steve Spagnuolo were to leave, I mean, I think they've got a few more in-house candidates. But, and that's the other thing, too. I mean, from Andy Reid's remarks, it didn't seem like he was thinking that Steve Spagnuolo was going anywhere. So it was much more likely that Matt Nagy would be the one. Now, Joe Blameyer's not your cup of tea. There are other names that have been associated with Andy Reid in the past that are out there. Mike Kafka has been thrown around ever since the Giants made their head coaching change. The assumption being that Mike Kafka is not going to be the permanent head coach in New York. Maybe he will, though, and that will change that equation. I know the connecting the dots is always going to bring Cliff Kingsbury into the conversation, especially now that he's a free agent, parting ways with Washington. Question there is that, if he wants to be a head coach and he's going to hold out for a head coaching job, Chiefs may not want to wait that long if he is a candidate. And again, I think the only connection there is that you would say, hey, this is a guy that Patrick Mahomes has worked with. He's a fan of. Maybe it would work there. Honestly, even though Cliff Kingsbury and Andy Reid haven't worked together, Cliff Kingsbury's not exactly outside the Venn diagram of Andy Reid. They've got a lot of overlap. So maybe there's a few ideas that he would bring, but then again, that's a man that loves to run the ball out of the shotgun, Ryan, and I don't know how much Chiefs fans would embrace that right now.
Right now, Cliff, good luck getting a head coaching job. I think that's the consensus at this point. But there are other implications of a lot of these things, and in particular, this staff needs an overhaul in other places. And who are some that need to go and some that may be very good fits. I have one guy on defense, whether Spag stays or not, that I think is not only a great fit, but I think he's nearly destined to be here. Matt's going to talk me off the loop about Antonio Pierce next. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is the official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern have become appointment viewing for the NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app just during that happy hour brings something new. It brings boosts, bonuses, and surprises, and you can get it all right there. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only at FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Folks, Chiefs Digest is the place to go to read. Matt, I think you need to do that. The need for read is what I'm about right now. And Andy Reid has needs as well. Whether Steve Spagnuolo stays, goes, eats lasagna, doesn't matter. I am putting the tinfoil hat on here, Matt, and I do believe that this defense, not only on the player side, but on the coaching side, I think needs a little bit of more edge. I need somebody to come in there and stir things up. I need somebody to get ready to send these guys to battle, not just to a field. I'm reading into the fact that Antonio Pierce spent some time in training camp, and I do think that that is the type of guy that Spags already respects and brings that kind of attitude to the team. I think it's a natural fit. I think they should do it. I expect that they will. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, you're putting together a lot of the same dots that some other people have too. And that was, also with Antonio Pierce coming in, some of the same dots with like, hey, if Steve Spagnuolo leaves, Antonio Pierce, maybe he's your defensive coordinator going forward. But that would be my expectation, is that if Antonio Pierce lands somewhere this year, that would be the natural landing spot, would be a defensive coordinator spot. But let's play a little devil's advocate here. Let's play a little tinfoil hat. I mean, there are possibilities, because let's face it, Joe Cullen, Brendan Daly, Dave Merritt all want to be defensive coordinators. And if an opportunity arises for any one of them, they could be leaving. And while Dave Merritt, I don't think would set off necessarily the Antonio Pierce cascade or the dominoes, one of the other two, and Brendan Daly or Joe Cullen, could. Because if Brendan Daly leaves, natural opening. You could have, Antonio Pierce come in as a linebackers coach, and maybe an additional title too, the kind of, give him something that's a little bit above just a regular position coach. Joe Cullen leaves. Well, Brendan Daly's been a defensive line coach before. He could go back to defensive line, and that opens up at linebacker and something else for Antonio Pierce. I mean, the only thing that would really be, the catch there would be if you bring in Antonio Pierce and then you're setting him on a level that's above Dave Merritt and Brendan Daly, and that could, bother a few egos here and there and everything. And sure. And I know you're talking about the defense here, and I know he's already got a job, but we've also seen people change jobs after taking jobs, and I know we've had this conversation with my guy Nick over at 41 is the mic, so I'm just going to throw it out there. There was another coach in training camp with the Chiefs, Juan Castro, goes back a long way with Andy Reid as an offensive line coach. The man's like 70 years old, Ryan. Was he actually, I don't think he's that old. I think he's a little bit younger than that.
He's David Culley's older brother, right?
I always think that because Juan Castro has just been around forever, and his son's into the Chiefs organization in the front office. There's a lot of connections there. Andy Reid goes back with him forever. There was an offensive line coaching position open up on the Chiefs staff, whether they've got a new offensive coordinator or not. And I know he just left Michigan. Did he go to Syracuse or North Carolina? He went to one of the ACC schools. But once again, you take jobs to leave them. So
it's all ladder, buddy.
He jumped out of Michigan just before things went downhill there. So
yeah, I agree.
Clearly was just looking for a life raft before things went crazy.
Yeah, any O-ring in the dark, that's what you're looking for. And you bring up a good point because of familiarity. Looks like the Chiefs are losing Alex Whittingham as well, going to go work for his dad at Michigan. So it makes a lot of sense. I have no problem with that. I think that's something that could happen. I think there's maybe more movement on the offensive side other than the domino that you just laid out of maybe somebody coming in, Joe Cullen gets a job, Brendan Daly moves. Like, that's a lot of movement. But I think in terms of just a lot of churn, I think the offensive side is probably more likely. I think Matt Nagy's situation is more likely to happen. And what that does to the pool, I think, is very interesting. I personally would be looking for a shorter term assignment. If I'm Andy Reid, I would be looking for someone outside my tree that I know is going to be a head coach again, that can come in, inject something new that I can then riff off like I always do if I'm Andy Reid. And Kevin Stefanski is a guy that I keep coming back to. If Matt Nagy's going to go elsewhere, make him the offer. Nothing against Joe Blameyer. He's done some very good job. But again, as a passing-oriented coach, when the Chiefs must have run game, at least to begin next season, makes me a bit nervous. I want to see somebody that knows how to run the ball, wants to run the ball, wants to use the tight ends. This is the fit that just keeps coming back to me. Do you like it? Am I overly enthusiastic? And is there any chance in all that is good that could happen?
I mean, the only real, stumbling block to it seems to be that there are some out there who think that Kevin Stefanski may land another head coaching job in this cycle. Again, the Browns are a terrible franchise. And even though I do not, myself personally, I do not think that Kevin Stefanski was deserving of either of the two Coach of the Year awards, just simply because the fact that, well, one of the years you won the NFL Coach of the Year award was because you coached the team to a terrible season. I just don't always think that the best job that a coach did was just taking a terrible team and making them the bottom of the barrel playoff eligible. And this is nothing against Kevin Stefanski. It's more about, just me against the AP coaching, AP voting awards. But that would be my only catch, is that if he really wants to be a head coach, you probably hired him for 1 year at that. Is 1 year good enough for that? Maybe. I mean, if you are if Andy Reid's going to Andy Reid, which is that he's going to hire somebody that he's worked with in the past, there's at least some dominoes falling that if Joe Blameyer got the job, I could sell it to you as an appealing option, because if Joe Blameyer gets the job, one, there's some smoke around the fact that Joe Blameyer has been maybe the more progressive of any of the young minds on the Andy Reid coaching staff, because he usually gets credit for a lot of the trick plays and, looking at doing a lot of things that Andy Reid used to do when he was younger, watching old film and watching other offenses and taking things that they can borrow. Great coaches don't steal, they borrow.
We'll give it back, just slightly dented. It's
you
fine.
look for those things. Yeah. And if Joe Blameyer takes that role, hey, right now he's passing game coordinator. Maybe Connor Embry becomes passing game coordinator. Todd Pinkston goes from running backs to wide receivers. You bring in a new wide running backs coach. And, but maybe you also bring in a new offensive line coach. I'm not looking to get rid of Tom Melvin, but there's always been talk that maybe Tom Melvin's going to walk away when Travis Kelce does too. And if your offensive coordinator leaves, even if you promote from within, there's still an opportunity and a reason to refresh the coaching staff too. So I don't know that if Andy Reid, one, either hired from in-house, or two, hired from someone from his tree like Mike Kafka, I don't know that would necessarily lock in the offensive coaching staff to be frozen as is.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do think that if Mike Kafka does not get the Giants job, and I do believe he will have a fair shot at it, I believe this would probably be destination one in Mike Kafka's mind, to tell you the truth. I don't think he's going to get opportunity outside of New York for another head coaching position. So you would want to come back and really see what you could do with arguably broken, but on the mend, best quarterback in this league. It's the only thing left to add to your resume, right? So I guess that is an interesting scenario, and what that does on both sides for those dominoes to fall can be very creative. And obviously, folks, we will have updates for you when some of these things happen. But Matt, right now, just gut instinct. Do either of these coordinators come back?
I think Spags is still here next year in Kansas City. I think more than likely Matt Nagy moves on, whether if it's a head coaching job or an offensive coordinator job. I think he'll probably end up being one of the higher offense. If he doesn't get a head coaching job, he's going to be one of the higher paid offensive coordinators in the league next year.
Yeah, and carte blanche pretty much. So that's kind of the way I see it as well. So, folks, let us know what you think. Put your comments in here on YouTube. Check out ChiefsDigest.com, and 41 is the mic where you can hear Matt do his thing when he's not here with me, and I very much appreciate you, Matt. Thanks for the calmness, and I'm looking forward to next week when you talk me off to some other crazy scenario.
Hey, we got like almost 4 months to just come up with crazy scenarios before the draft gets here, Ryan. So we don't know what to do with all this time on our hands.
Folks, don't worry. I'll be doing mock drafts too. I can get us 5 top 100 picks. I guarantee it. It's going to be a blast. We'll let Matt shoot holes in that too. Thank you for being with us. We appreciate you guys being here. This is your daily show for the Kansas City Chiefs all year long. So don't think that this is slowing down in any way, because as much as we talk about the coaching staff, we'll be into free agency and then we'll be on to the draft. I'll have more information than you can handle. So be here 5 days a week, just like we are. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your patience.